Jeff.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're on. I want to share a little story with you. So on the way, by the way, forgive my sweat. I just got home from the box and I'm drenched and I wear my hair in a ponytail now and it gets all over my face, and so now when I come home it's wild. But on the way to the box, I heard that it was National Donut Day, and so the old me went and got one of these, which was so this used to be crack for me. I used to inhale these things, and
Really?
yeah, and it's also Friday, and I have this thing called Fuck It Friday, and so I got one of these, and now that I'm here, I'm gonna challenge myself to not touch it, which is gonna be very hard to do.
All right. I'm gonna trust you to then not eat it after the Google chat
Yeah,
anyway.
right. But you're gonna make me accountable. But
Yeah.
I think it was National. I don't know if I heard it right. Maybe it was National Donor Day, and the that side of me uh, made it made it National Donut Day because we only hear what we want to hear.
Oh wow.
Anyway, so and by the way, I want to mention this because I was talking about this in group, and let me know your thoughts on this. One of the fastest ways to lose weight is to just eliminate sugar. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I completely believe that. Um, if you look at today's diet, so much of it's processed, and sugars can be used as a sweetener, but also partly as a preservative, just like salt is. So
Yeah.
when you start reading labels on things, it's insane how sugar's in literally everything.
Yeah, and I think if you could change the chemistry inside your body, I mean, the goal is to actually get it to a point where you don't crave it. To get it to the point where, so before, I used to eat, I don't know, three donuts or something. That wasn't a problem for me. Now, if I eat more than one donut, I almost get sick to my stomach because my taste buds have changed. So I think the goal is to get to a point where you change your taste buds and then use that as leverage to start, making your diet sugar free. And I think when you change that chemistry, you burn a lot more fat.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to wean yourself off stuff like that. Like for me, I mean, there's three white powders that'll kill you, right? There's sugar, salt, and Coke. And for me,
Yeah. Yeah. So as a general rule of thumb, no white.
yeah, those three white things will kill you eventually. But for me, mine's salt. I don't really have a problem with sugar. I'm pretty wary of sugar, but I just
Oh,
love a
you
bit of
like
salt.
you like the
in
salty
my
thing.
Yeah, like when I kind of put it on everything, even things that I know have got like heaps of salt in them. So I'm trying to, I'm
Like
kind of
cereal.
like,
You put your salt on
yeah,
cereal.
yeah, with my Cocoa Pops.
Yeah, for me, it's the sugar. It's always been, and it's because growing up, I was raised by pop culture, and my parents, they would working so much that they would allow, I guess what they thought was American was to buy me, chicken McNuggets and sugar cereal and Twinkies. Yeah, no education in nutrition. So all the kids would love coming over to my house because it would just be like a liquor store. It would be anything they wanted, from Lucky Charms to candy bars. And so I was so used to that as an adult. When I got more educated on nutrition and realizing that sugar is like crack, it was so hard to get off it. And it's still a challenge for me.
Yeah, right. I think you're going all right now, mate. Don't beat yourself up too much.
Yeah. So you want to get started on this?
Yeah, yeah, cool. Let's get into it.
All right.
I've kind of read it up to about 30, but I've just been rereading the first few just to get fresh.
Okay, cool. So, some of these are kind of half joking. Some of them are something I'm passionate about. So, the number one thing, by the way, if you're watching this or just tuning in, we're talking about guy stuff in the sense that definitions of man. And so I wrote this little book because as a kind of a reminder to challenge men in their beliefs, and also for women as a standard to see, remind them or to challenge them on what to look for in a quote-unquote man.
Awesome.
So,
And yeah, while we're at the start, if it's all right, I just to get going. So when we were just chatting last time, I sort of I meant to say it and I just forgot. So the thing that I want to work on, kind of like dedicate my time to moving forwards, is that I want to change. I want to contribute to changing the perception of the Aussie male being weak if he, reaches out or shows vulnerability, like if he's struggling emotionally, or and I want to try and contribute to flipping that on its head and changing that Aussie, like tough guy perception to being the stronger guy is the guy that shows his vulnerability and reaches out if he's struggling, because it's a big problem right now in Australia, and there's a movement to fix it, and I want to be part of it. So that's why I'm stoked to be chatting about the 68, even though there's some pretty awesome funny ones. Like it's a good book.
How do you think that happened? Why do you think Steph, I've never been to Australia, but what is it that has men so against being vulnerable? Do you think it's society, advertising? What is it? Why are we like that, you think?
I think it's probably across the board, right? But particularly with us Aussies, we've got the Aussie guy is, and I was that guy, and I still am, but I'm just choosing to do a few things a little differently, but only from my own struggles, like and doing the exact opposite, right? Like, so I've done the suffering silently, and I've done the going it alone and not being vulnerable, and just like a lot of my friends and pretty much everywhere you look has. And I think the reason behind it is there's a stereotype that like us Aussie guys are like we're very robust and tough and strong, and I think we are that, and we kick ass at a lot of sport for a tiny little country, and we rocket at a lot of things, which is epic. But there is what comes with that, and it does feel good to have that confidence, like that sort of like, yeah, I can freaking do this, like growing up like that. That's exactly how I grew up. But then the flip side is when everything's not going great, you sort of got nowhere to go, and I'm not really sure why. I think we just created a bit of a stereotype where it's very good at leveraging you up if you want it, which is a good thing. But then if you fall over or if you take a hit, there's not much room to go, because everyone's just talking about how you're supposed to be, this kind of like, not alpha male necessarily, but like a sort of strong person. Don't show your weakness. It's So
what are the consequences of that? Then when I say we, just in men in general, then what do you do with those feelings? You internalize, right?
Yeah, you suffer silently, and it just gets worse.
So what happens is you're right. You suffer silently. You internalize, and as humans, you got to find a way to cope. And usually, it's going to be whatever tugs on your weaknesses, your vices, your addictions. And so then we start behaving in ways that we don't like, and then we beat ourselves up for that behavior, and then now we're going through a vicious cycle that keeps us grayed out and miserable,
Yeah, like you just described me 12 months ago.
the old Jeff. This is the old John, and I was just talking about the old Jeff. I like this idea of cutting us in half and start pulling from the new, which is why I could sit here in front of a donut in front of you, but not actually touch it.
So it's 16 a.m. now. I get up at 5 every morning except Sundays, and the old Jeff would have just got in to make this call.
Oh, wow. Interesting. You mean from the night before?
Yeah. Right. So I'm telling this picture of you in a funny state.
And you know what? I think a lot of guys can relate to that. A lot of other Jeffs and a lot of other Johns.
Yeah, I think that's we'll get to that in the book. There's one that just hits that right on the head about what we used to. You just nailed it with the you're internalizing, you're not reaching out, and then you start reaching for things. I was just talking to a buddy of mine this week, and he's not like he's a awesome guy, but he just was like, man, I just had to stop drinking because I realized I was having like 7 beers every night, and he was like, that's too much, like after 4 beers you kind of like it's starting to be a mini session, 7-8 beers a night.
Right, right.
That's it's quite a lot, and just because he wasn't walking through the reason why is that he's anxious and he's getting anxiety sort of when he's driving home from work. It starts building up, and
Yeah.
so like you said, that reaching, it's that's the stuff that's got to. It doesn't cut it anymore. I don't think. I think we need to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one is in my little book is don't react, do respond. And I got to say, so I started off with that because, and these are all in random, they're not in any particular order. But if I was to pick one thing that separates a man from a boy, I think, and if I was just to pick one, I think it would be this, which is I think boys tend to react and men respond. And I've been a boy most of my life, so everything for me has been a reaction. So whether it's a reaction toward other men, whether it's a reaction toward, like a reaction from anger, from whatever it is, a response, you got to be metacognitive. You got to actually think about how your response is going to affect yourself, but also others. And that little space, that actually putting that thought before your action is rare, I think. And I think a lot of males don't do that. I think they react.
Yeah, I think that's it's very apt at its first, for sure. I think it creates reacting. It's it's unhealthy, right? But I know I've been guilty of it a lot in the past, and I think I was putting some thought into it, and I think the way I'd react was to a couple of times a year, like say in a relationship, like I just get really angry about something. It's usually like twice a year or something. I just blow up and normally storm out of the house or whatever, and I think it gave me a sense of certainty, because I didn't know what to do in that situation. It was like I didn't have a coping mechanism. I was a boy, so and like thinking about it after reading your book and kind of like all the work I've been doing, the last sort of 8-9 months, is that I think it gave me like this sense of certainty, like I freaking am angry, because this sucks, but it doesn't, it doesn't get you anywhere, because you've got like someone you really care about going, wow, like this isn't what I signed up for, or do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I mean, I never swear at anyone or direct, but I would swear, like this freaking sucks or whatever, and be pretty, pissed off.
Here's the other thing, the reacting or responding to yourself. So a lot of times men put a lot of pressure on themselves and they beat themselves up. So to not react to that, but more respond. And in that way, what I mean is being a kinder to yourself instead of bashing yourself. Because bashing yourself is a reaction.
Yeah, man, I've done that my whole life. I think I've actually used that as some kind of like fuel to like push me forward sometimes in a really strange way, like as nothing was ever good enough, and but it stopped me from enjoying anything along the way, because I'd be like, this happened, of course it happened, okay, what's next? And like, oh, that wasn't good enough, and it's just like, oh man, it's a really exhausting process to be. I was really good at beating the shit out of myself. I'm just learning, like we've talked about it, like in our sessions, like I'm just learning now to not beat the crap out of myself, and it feels so much lighter. It's amazing, like it's unbelievable if you can.
Absolutely. And that goes kind of back to this idea. So I talk a lot about safe containers, and to keep your containers safe, I think, well, man or woman, but you have to not bash yourself. You have to respond to yourself, not react to yourself. So for me, most of my life has been a giant reaction. And a reaction is also seeing shiny things. And back in my 20s when I was running this club, chasing after rainbows and women and fast cars and money and like all that in a sense is a reaction. It's not really a response. It's not like you're doing this for what reason, or thinking about how your actions are going to affect other people, or what kind of dent you want to make in the universe. It's basically me, I want, ego. You know, it's very kind of like like an infant, instant gratification. You know, a lot of
Yeah,
from knee jerks.
I think I think that you just hit it on the head too with the ego. The ego loves reacting, right? Because it just
Yeah.
gets dented so easy. Like it's just such a reactionary part of you. I think, like if it's in an unhealthy in an unhealthy state. Yeah, you know, that's a tough gig, that one, but it's probably the most important one, right? That's why it's number one.
Yeah, it's one of the most, I find, one of the hardest things to do. But I really think that if you could start to, and of course it's like a muscle, you know, you got to practice it. But if you really turn that dial from reaction to response, and you let that ripple throughout your life, so whether it's in relationships, at work, also to yourself, man, it's a lot of work, but you'll see the results of that pretty fast.
Yeah, I think you can actually feel it, like when you're kind of processing more before you respond, and you've got that kind of like delayed reaction time where you're allowing yourself to, like, kind of like you almost, for me it feels like I'm almost like allowing like my heart to feel my way through the response, and
Right.
it's never a bad thing, you know. We could be talking about like something like really heavy, and like a serious relationship or something, and if I just have that little bit of time that allows my heart to sort of dictate what I'm going to say, even if the conversation's hard, I always feel like when the conversation's over, I'm like, it was healthy, you know. Like you know, we might have had to make some tough calls, or something didn't go my way, but you know, like, you know, I spoke from my heart, and I wasn't reacting, and you can sort of feel when you're doing it, and it's it's a heaps better way to go for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, it's all about the way you feel as far as changing your state, as opposed to trying to. A lot of people try to change their circumstances, but if you change your state, your circumstances will change. And part of changing your state is being aware of how something makes you feel. So, for example, if you're reacting a lot and then bashing yourself, your state, you're not going to change your circumstances because your state is not healthy. Like, you're not. It's not an empowering. You're not building to any worth. You're just in there with a hammer, shattering it. You know.
Yeah, that's a tough one too. You know, it's really easy to look around and go, oh my God, my life's so tough, or whatever, you know. But it really is your just your perception. Like, you know, like you said, when you grade out, you just, you know, and then you start reacting. It's an easy one to do, but it's definitely not the way to go. Like you say, it's not. It's just it's just how you're reacting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what?
You know what I used to do a lot, and I still struggle with it, is complain. Man, I used to, and I don't know where that came from, but I used to complain constantly. I still do this once in a while, dread things, and I realized that's a choice. I mean, just to turn that faucet off and stop doing it changes the energy.
Yeah, a little side note on that. We got some. So back when I used to have an events company with my wife, she was co-director, and our main event was a little eco music festival, and I can't remember where I got them from, but you know, like the armbands that you've got now. I just saw you've got some new.
Oh yeah. Oh, you were telling me about this, the no complain, right? And you
Yeah,
switch.
the no complaint armbands, and yeah, every time you complain, you change it from one hand to the other, and it just brings that awareness. And we there's a myself and a few of us wearing them like the week before the festival. So you know, you on the site, it's a lot of pressure because you know you can't tell thousands of people that we're not ready. You know, you got to be ready, and there's a lot happening. And we had these no complaint bands, and it just made you. It just everyone. I mean, the week before the show, you're solution based anyway. Everything's fixable and figure outable, you know. But it has to be, otherwise you're not going to make the time. But yeah, that was something really cool. You could see the shift when someone would get halfway through about to, you know, lean into a complaint. They'd be like, oh, and then they'd step back, you know.
That's awesome
And,
visually. I could never get one of those because I would spend the whole day just going. I would get nothing done. That's all we'd do all day, is be putting it from wrist to wrist.
I just ordered some new ones. I'm going to send you one.
Okay. Um, the number two is don't pee in the shower. I want to specify this because people this one's kind of a little bit controversial, I guess. First of all, it's not meant to be that serious, but it's not that it's not don't pee in the shower. You can pee in the shower if you want. The thing is, if you're in a relationship and your girlfriend or wife or your partner or whatever, whoever you're with, if they don't want you to pee in the shower, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, women have, I think, a better sense of smell than men, and they know. And so the consequence of peeing in the shower isn't so much the peeing in the shower, it's that little white lie, because I think men think that if you pee in the shower, there's no way they're gonna know. You flush it down with shampoo, whatever. It's not, how are they gonna know that you peed in the shower? But women know this shit, and if you say that you didn't when you did, and they know or they could smell that you did pee in the shower, and they don't believe you, what happens is there's like a little hairline of crack with the trust that's there, and then enough of these cracks, and then they start questioning. If you're lying to me about peeing in the shower, are you lying to me about other women? Are you lying? What else are you lying to me about? So it's not so much the peeing in the shower. It's like if you just don't do it, you're not opening that bag. You're not allowing these hairline cracks of trust. Now, if you pee in the shower and she knows you pee in the shower and she's okay with it, then shit, write your name, do whatever you want. So it's not so much of not peeing in the shower. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like it.
You're like, this guy's nuts.
I like how this one's number two too. I've never had a complaint, but I'm totally guilty of this one, I have to say. But I guess it's like you said, it's never been a problem. But I've decided from reading your book, even though like I'm just living on my own at the moment, I'm gonna try and exercise restraint. And,
yeah, I don't know, but here's the thing.
Doing...
If you live on your own, it's not the act of peeing in the shower that is a big deal, because who cares?
No, I realise that, but I thought it'd just be like a good exercise, little mini exercise in self-discipline for myself. Anyway.
Right.
Because that's kind of like what I do. Like.
Right. Now, now going number two in the shower is definitely, I would say no.
Yeah,
that's not a manly thing to do.
If I was to have a stab in the dark, I would say that would never be good in any circumstance.
Number three, do walk with mirrors. Do you know what that means? Do you know what I mean by that?
I mean, I've read the definition, but if you could like elaborate, that'd be cool.
Just to always make sure your hair looks good. So yeah. always walk with a little mirror. No, I'm just kidding. It's always kind of look inward first. Walking with mirrors means to look at yourself, look at your behavior, look at what's going on, that kind of stuff. I don't mean be superficial, or I'm not talking about aesthetics. I'm not talking literally. I meant like an internal mirror.
So it's not just about looking awesome all the time?
No, I think we should look as awesome as we can, absolutely. And I don't know if men carry mirrors anymore. Was that like a 50s thing? I think I don't know, but anyway, yeah, walking with an internal mirror. What's that?
I said I'm an Australian male. I wouldn't know anything about that. Guys carrying mirrors? I don't know.
You have a mirror on your surfboard. Come on, Jeff. Let's be honest. Let's be transparent.
Yeah. How would you? Because this almost sounds like something that you would sort of do. Before you respond, almost like going back to number one, like it kind of like if you could do this well, then your responses instead of reactions would be better. Like would that?
Absolutely. I think if you make a promise or a commitment to yourself to look inward first. So if there's conflict with whether it's your girlfriend or another man or whatever, or your boss, to first see what is it about you that you're doing. Or what is it, like if you don't like someone or if someone bothers the shit out of you, instead of judging and criticizing and reacting, first ask yourself, is there something going on within you? You know what I'm saying? Is it more about you? And then if you kind of realize that it's not, that they're just being a dick or whatever, then it's okay. But that kind of first beat to look inward first, I think is walking with a mirror.
Yeah. So that's a tool you can use to respond rather than react.
Right,
Kind of thing.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just taking that beat, man, and I think a lot of people react instantly. Based on their story. I work with addicts, and a lot of addicts, it's their whole addiction is a giant response. I mean, a reaction. It's all reacting, not a lot of thought into the consequences of their actions.
Right. Yeah. I can almost like thinking about it, like feel like the feeling that I sort of feel in my chest, like a hurt. Like when I when I would just react and I wouldn't look internally at what that is. I just go like, "Bleh," just
Right,
kind of
right.
like vomit out a reaction, like,
Yeah.
just because I was hurting and not happy, with where I was at, or, the direction they were coming at me, or,
Hmm.
yeah.
Also,
It's a,
a lot of men, I think, just because men are, I mean, it's a generalization, but men are generally more logical. When they get into an argument, a lot of steamrolling because they pull from logic, and it becomes like a tug of war, improving someone wrong, uh, and that in a way can be a reaction, as opposed to instead of thinking, what's the purpose of winning this argument? Is it just to win, or you know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, no, I do. I had someone say to me once, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And
Mhm.
uh, and it was in a situation where there were people that wanted us to sue these companies in France for the show that we had to cancel, which ultimately made us we lost the business, and it was going to be this long, arduous process, and it was, yeah, when he said it, I was like, wow, that's, because we were about to start this massive, logical fight. We lost money because things happen, so it makes sense that we should subpoena them and blah blah blah. But the reality was that would like keep me in that sort of like static place for freaking maybe years. Still having to rehash what happened over and over. And I just remember when I got told that, it was just like, yeah, it was liberation in a sentence. I was like, holy shit. Sometimes, yeah, it's not about being right, is it? It's about, yeah, about being free, whatever that is. Like, just be
Yeah.
hearing the other person or knowing where they're coming from, or better explaining yourself, and not necessarily like a right and a wrong. Or
Yeah, I agree. Uh, Number four, do make your bed. What do you think about this one?
check my bed out, like it's made, man.
Oh shit. Okay, so let's be honest. Did you make your bed before we went on, or is that an everyday thing that?
Straight up everyday thing. I've got to do it. Like if I don't do it, it's weird. Like
Wow, look at
if
your
I
pillows
do
all set up. Yeah, that looks really sharp, Jeff.
it,
I think
thanks.
you know what? I think it's a great ritual, and I'm just saying this, and maybe for a lot of men that's not a big deal because they do it. Um, so growing up, I never made my bed. Never. So and when I was married, I didn't understand why do I need to make my bed when it's gonna just get messy. 10 hours later when we go back to sleep. And I've learned that the action of making your bed, you're kind of subconsciously announcing to whoever you're with or the world that you're gonna go out and conquer the day. And I think it's a really healthy ritual to be um, to make that announcement instead of getting out of bed. It's a mess, and it's just it's like a frat house, whatever, and you leave, you come back, and it could be a very it has nothing to do with the cleanliness. I mean, that's another thing, but it kind of like having order in your life, and having some purpose, having some certainty.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly why I do it. Like I never used to do it. Like of course, it's like you
Yeah.
just get out of bed and just go straight outside. When I was a kid, you wouldn't even think about it. I can remember my mum asking me to do that probably right up until the day I moved out. But now, yeah, it just kind of feels like it's part of the process of starting the day right. And even when I come home, if like I didn't do it, then I come home and I'm like, ah, man, it just even to myself, even regardless of anyone else, it kind of feels like it's a better way to start the day. Something's going to be prepared for for later. you
Yeah.
know, and I've taken the time to, yeah, it just feels like it's the right thing to do. I don't know, that's
And I
something
think also it's not attractive. I don't think women find that attractive. If they're, you know, like socks on the floor is one thing, but if your whole bedroom's a mess and you never make your bed and all that, it just I think it could be a turnoff.
yeah, yeah, to be honest, I think if I saw like a woman's bed and it was just all like messy and whatever, and I'd be like, oh, I wonder what a life's like.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I don't know why I'd do that, and I wouldn't probably go that deep in that split second, but there'd be probably a bit of like judging there, maybe unfairly, but yeah.
No, I think that's fair. I think a lot of people their environment is the way their environment is a direct reflection of kind of the how they are in their life or what their life looks like. I'm
Do you
glad that.
know,
What's that?
I was just going to ask like how you came up with that one because it's kind of like it's actually really fitting that it's in there, but it's like what making your bed. You know what I mean? Like it's not like what made you come up with that?
Yeah. I'm glad that my camera is not. I'm glad I'm not in my bedroom right now. I still struggle with it. So let's just do a couple more because we're running out of time. So the next one is don't argue. What do you think of this? Don't argue.
Yeah, what do I think of not arguing? Just define it again because I've already read it, but just go through
Yeah,
it.
let me. Okay, so it says break the cycle. Uh, she's arguing with you because she's not feeling heard. So put your point aside and focus on making her feel heard. You do this by practicing empathy, putting yourself in her shoes. Try to truly understand what she's going through. This means addressing her feelings. When she feels heard, the argument can now turn into a discussion. Express your point. If it gets heated again, don't argue. Go back to addressing her feelings, making her feel heard, and then make it a non-negotiable that you will not argue. It takes two people to have a tug of war. If you refuse to hold the rope, there's no war. I used to argue all the time, man, constantly arguing. And I have this story. I think I don't know if I said it in the video, but I just recently told my group this. So the story that I used is when I was married. My ex-wife and I were arguing in the car about tinted windows, and she had very fair skin, and I was arguing with her that if she tints the side of her window, then it would prevent some of the UV from coming in. And my brother works for a car dealership, and like I just know that it's a fact that there's certain tint you can put on your window to prevent the sun from being so rough on your skin. And she said no, the tint window does nothing. So we started arguing about that, and I argued so hard like a lawyer until she started crying, and I realized at the end that it wasn't about tinted windows. It was just about her wanting to be heard, because I had a pattern of just steamrolling and arguing, and so I realized there's no need to argue. Like if you could read subtext, you could have a discussion, but like arguing where you're trying to win a battle, I think boys do that.
Yeah, I think it's quite common for us, isn't it? And it's that, and I think it's quite common for women to feel like they're not heard either with us guys because we get it wrong so much.
I think because we focus on the words instead of what's underneath the words.
Yeah, and we do that stupid guy thing as well of trying to fix things for them when sometimes they just want you to hear them, and then they get frustrated about that, which is completely reasonable. But yeah, I don't, I know some, I'm all for like an uncomfortable conversation, but I wouldn't complain if I never had like a serious heated argument ever again.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've had enough of them, and also, yeah, it does take two to tango, so to speak. And so if one person stops dancing, you can't dance on your own, right? Like you said. Right. So
yeah, it's good, and even with men, like when men get into arguments, sometimes they lead to fist fights and all that. Like it just accept their truth, and know that what's the point of arguing?
It's what it is. Like it's not. Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's a huge one, and I think it's probably relates to almost most of the points in the book. But if you can yeah, if you can kind of master like the art of, like hearing people better, so they know that to be honest, I think if people just knew that they're being heard more, like it wouldn't probably lead into an argument 80% of the 90% of the time, maybe. Like, what do you think? Like, I don't know. Like, if I feel like I got my point across, whether they agree with it or not, instantly I'd feel better if I know that they got it, even if they don't want to do anything with it, And I've been on the other side as well, when I know that all of a sudden I've stopped and like with my wife or whatever, and I've got it. I know what you're saying. I'm not sure what we can do about it or whatever, and instantly she's like, it just stops that sort of like train.
Right. A great way to kind of defuse is you. At the end of the day, you're right. Male or female, you want to be heard, and it's when you're not heard that things get heated, and people start arguing about things, and it's really turns out that what they're arguing about isn't what they're arguing about, and people get into fights over really silly things. But you'll realize that if you really look at it, it's never what the fight's really about. The fight sometimes is about just not being heard. That you're not creating a safe space for someone.
So, for someone like, so if you were talking to John now, like the John that was driving the car, talking about tinted windows, like what, and you're just snapping, like say, you're in a relationship where you're arguing all the time, or somebody's, what advice would you give? Like, how do you get better at, like, not just turning, like, going into that, like when you're in like a serious relationship and things are like quite frail, and the point before an argument's like really high, like how do you sort of get, like, what advice would you give to get out of that side?
Yeah, I think when you feel that there's an argument and then people are getting emotional and angry, and that you have to be able to stop yourself and think, what is the person, like, try to read subtext. So, for example, in screenwriting in movies, a lot of times the dialogue doesn't match what's happening underneath. Right. And so, and that's like real life. A lot of times people say things, and what you should try to listen to isn't the words, but what they're really trying to say underneath. There was, I forgot where this is, like, I think Jennifer Aniston said this in a movie or something, that I don't want you to do the dishes, I want you to want to do the dishes. So, like, that's not about the dishes, it's about do you know what I'm saying? It's like she just wants him to want to do the dishes, like contribute. She doesn't necessarily want him to do the dishes. So it's like, if you feel yourself arguing, figure out what the person is trying to say underneath. And if you could address that piece instead of the words, then there's really no argument.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, and again, it's something that needs to be exercised. It's not something that you just decide to do. I think to have a sharp radar, you have to do it a lot. And this now we're overlapping into communication, and the way that men communicate and the way that women communicate.
So how do you, like, how does someone, like, is it awareness? Like, how does someone, like, get, sharpen their radar and exercise the muscle, like, repeatedly, over and over, like,
It is. I think it starts with a non-negotiable. So one of the things that I told myself I wouldn't do anymore. One thing I didn't like about myself. So, like, in my 20s, I was very argumentative. Today, at 41, it's a non-negotiable. I'm not interested in arguing with anyone. So we can have a discussion, and hopefully it's an intelligent one. But if it's not, and we differ in opinion, there's no fight. I just won't argue. So then I'll go under and start asking questions of, what is it? I noticed you're angry. What is it you're angry about? Instead of engaging in the argument, going sub and figuring out what the feeling is and why they feel that way, and addressing that instead of tinted windows or whatever the argument's about.
That was a good one. I think that's awesome. I think even just that kind of metaphor that you use, like going sub, like going under. Just you could almost use that as when you start sensing in arguments, a conversation's changing to an argument. You could kind of like go, oh, I want to get underneath this, like before it before it escalates, and then
Yeah.
you know, you almost like,
Here's an example. Like if some guy came up to me and said, "Hey, you're an asshole." So going under would, or I call it emotional aikido. Aikido is this martial art where you take the other person's energy, and instead of punching them back, you use their energy to throw them over your shoulder or other kinds of things like that. Uh, my response could be, yeah, sometimes I could be an asshole. You're absolutely right. So instead of arguing, accept it, look inward first, and then figure out why, what is it, and then like there's no, because most people it's like, oh, you're an asshole, okay, well you're a fucking asshole too, and now we have an argument, and then suddenly we have two puffy chests, and like instead of going underneath and figuring out what is it, where is this coming from, and why is he saying that, or why is she saying that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool, man. Carry on.
Let's I love this also because it's a reminder for myself, this exercise, as well as us having a conversation. Let's end on this one. Don't compare this is number 7. Don't compare yourself to other men, in parentheses, including penis size.
Yeah.
So
I like you went into quite a lot of detail with the penis size thing in like America's.
Okay, well, here's the thing, because of society, and I think a lot of younger kids growing up, because of the internet and pornography, they're exposed to a lot of things that, like, our parents. I know when I was growing up, if you wanted to see porn or anything like that, you'd have to go steal like a magazine. You have to steal a Playboy. Like in the 80s, there was no internet, so it wasn't accessible. And even that, I think, growing up, really played with my head, and locker rooms and all that. And I think now kids, because it's everywhere on the internet, their ideas of penis size, of comparing themselves to other men, of sexual performance, and what things are supposed to be like in the bedroom, all that stuff, I think, is distorted.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I mean, I'm not really saying anything, am I? I think you could grow into not giving a shit and just being your own man. Like I think a lot of guys, struggle with that, like with the comparison thing. But like when you're a kid, it's almost like you can't. I don't know, like what it's like growing up in the States, but in Australia, like we're super sporty, like we're a very sports-driven nation, and sport is competing, right? So you grow up and you're a competitor, like it's just what them, and there's a lot to be embraced with that. Like I love that, that like I've got a competitive nature, but at the same time, that competitiveness can naturally does kind of like lean into comparison, like, so that guy's just that bit faster than me, he's a bit stronger, and and the other side as well is like I smoke all of those guys, like I'm way faster than them, I'm stronger than them, I'm better than them, and it's
But it's also, you're talking about being an athlete, but also comparing your life, comparing girlfriends, comparing how much money you have, comparing everything. And I think a lot of men, because they influence each other more than we think they do, even consciously or subconsciously, that if you're always comparing yourself to other guys, you're just going to be slippery.
And I think as you grow up too, you've got to I mean, I've been guilty of it for sure, but you got to be cool in your own skin. You got to just, you can't do that. It'll, that whole keeping up with the Joneses or whatever your comparison is that you're doing. It doesn't. You're just going to chase that thing that's never enough, right? Like it's always, because you're never at the top. If let's say you got to the top of your field or your whatever it is that you do, like there's going to be someone doing something else that's unrelated, but they might have more stuff than you, or they might, it's just never ending. You just can't go there. I think you got.
And I think if you compare, and then you also start, and comparing professions, comparing where you're at in your career, comparing if you're happy, it the residue is it makes you feel inadequate, because when we compare, we don't compare ourselves to the people that have less, or we don't compare ourselves to you know, we always compare ourselves to people that always have more, or things that we want.
Why do we do that?
I know,
like, you know how you say, because you do, right? You never look at someone that has less and go, oh, you know, I feel so much better now that did it. But you'll beat the crap out of yourself. Or,
right.
you know, I've done it before. I've beat the crap out of myself before, going, you know, especially after I lost this business. I'd, you know, like literally, like someone, you know, a happy husband or wife with a little boy or something, like be walking down the street and getting out of a nice car and be like, why the fuck isn't that me anymore, you know? And I just go on this big spiral, and you'd be like, whoa, like why do we do that?
I think it's ego, you know. I think that's why practicing gratitude is so powerful, because most people don't do it, because most people are not happy with what they have. They want more, or they want better, or they want faster, or, you know, penis size. They want bigger, you know, because of what they see or the stories they hear. And instead of being grateful that your penis even works, instead of being grateful and having gratitude that you're actually using your penis, you know, I mean, so if you're able to flip it and to see it that way, it's the difference is one's an empowering experience and one's depowering. So it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, or who you're with. There's always going to be someone with more than you. You know what I'm saying? But there's also people with less than you. And if you're only going to focus on people that have more, or more shinier things, or at a, you know, have more, whatever more looks like, then you're always going to feel less than. And if you're always, again, going back to changing your state, if you're always feeling less than, you're not going to have much traction. You're not going to achieve your goals. Your state is what's going to move you and get you to your definition of success and at your highest potential. So if you're always feeling less than, it's going to be you're going to be like the athlete that stutters and that doesn't think he can win, you know, as opposed to if you feel you have a lot, if you feel like you have enough and you feel comfortable in your skin and you feel valuable and you feel unique, and when you have those kind of feelings with your state, you have a lot of momentum and you will surprise yourself that you could actually win the race.
Yeah, that's so for the like 3 people or whatever that are watching this. Well, you know, if
200 something last week, so that's gonna go up, Jeff.
Yeah, cool.
You gotta change your state. You gotta believe in what we're doing right now.
Well, you know, like how, like say an Aussie guy is watching this, you know, like I was before, like what. You know, what advice would you give someone to you know, so practice gratitude, like I heard you say that's a huge one, like I can vouch for that for sure, that totally worked.
Okay, the way that you stop comparing yourself to other people is if you're going to base it on things we see on Facebook, right, the vacations and all the whatever, that's not an accurate comparison. Because now you're only judging on what is superficial. So if you look at it like everyone has their story, and that's their story, I have mine, and you separate it, then it's almost like apples and oranges where there's no comparison.
Right.
You know, and you have to reframe it, because that's true. I mean, we all have very unique, different stories, and you can't compare. Even though you and I overlap and we're both men and we both have similar passions, we also both have very different stories. You know, so like there's you can't compare. I think comparing is always going to, because we all have ego, it's always going to depower instead of empower you.
Yeah. I think it's almost like you're. The way we're marketed so aggressively at these days as well, it's, you know, you're getting like stuff shoved in your face all the time, and it's always like the newer, shinier. So it can be kind of quite easy to sort of buy into that. But like I know from my own personal experience, like you know, my happiest times are when, you know, like I'm in a surf camp in Indonesia somewhere, like sleeping on a mattress with probably has bed bugs, and I'm eating like rice and fish that's just caught straight out the front, and I'm surfing my brains out with no, living on like $5 a day, like, because there's not, just in this little like Indonesian village somewhere. They're my happiest memories. Like I can bounce back to them all the time, and there's got nothing to do with like stuff or comparing, or you just doing what you love and back to the basics kind of.
So well, let me ask you this: what's the difference in your state from the surfing in Indonesia with very little, but that's some of your happiest moments, as opposed to now, in the big city grinding? What's the difference in your why are you happy then, and why is it more difficult to be happy now?
Because I'm engaging in something that I love, like, so everything else is stripped away, and all you've got to do there is surf, and which is a big passion, so that lights me up, and that you kind of feel like you're almost getting back to that, like the roots of like. I mean, you're not hunting or foraging or anything, but for sure, like you'll do a bit of fishing and spear fishing, and it's just it feels like you're just back to that real basic kind of like living as a guy, as a man, where you just like you go surf the waves, like you kind of conquer the waves, you like eat this food that is nothing but good for you, and you don't need, there's no need for all the shit, But then when you, like for me right now, I'm living in Sydney, and I'm rebuilding, and I do catch myself sometimes, I'm like, oh man, like like I'll get a bill in the mail, and then I'll go to the shop, and I'll see that family, or whatever, and I will kind of be like, and it's much harder just because you're. The difference I think is one, when I'm in Indonesia, it's really easy to just focus on like what's in front of me, which I love doing, and when you're here, you're just kind of surrounded by things that you can compare to, right? So it's kind of it's a more of a battle to just be stoked with where you are and embrace today, Like.
You said it when you said back to the basics.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you live in the city, all the things that we think we want are actually distractions, and you're either running toward yourself or away from yourself. So when you're at when you're surfing in Indonesia and you have fresh fish and a mattress for a bed and there's roaches but you get nectar, you get joy out of surfing and having a fresh meal and whatever. That's like stripping away all your distractions and just going back to the basics, right?
Yeah.
There's a way to, it's a mindset. There's a way to do that in the city, and when there's adversity in your life and when you are stressed out, my rule of thumb is always go back to the basics. Always go back to what moves you, what brings you joy, and part of that is an ability to take what you have and seek nectar from it, So for me in the city, I got to get my CrossFit in. I love sitting at a counter and eating breakfast. I love motorcycle rides. I love engaging with people. I love hearing stories. I love writing. So these are things that don't involve. These are things that I have already. They're not things that are contingent. So I don't need to have some kind of like win the lottery to sit in front of my computer and write and get joy from that. And you don't need a lot of money to go surfing. All you need is a board and some waves.
No, yeah, and it's funny, like sometimes here in the city, like even lately, like I haven't been surfing as much because I don't know, it'll almost feel like it'll remind me that I'm not back to basics right now, that I'm sort of like a little bit like off kilter, because it really comes out in your surfing if you're not balanced, sort of thing.
Right.
Like it will literally be unbalanced surfing, your style won't be as fluid, you won't have as much power or flamboyancy in turns, and it's funny that it's kind of like a tough thing in the city to get that back to basics. I think it's what you said is really important. You almost like write down just like what like what makes you stoked, just straight up, just like
right.
The things you love doing, and just keep it simple. That's really good advice.
And I think especially for guys, because we're so we have the pressure to go and perform. We have the competitive nature, and if you take that and you put it into business or Wall Street or the world of cubicles, then it's that grind, and we forget very fast what our basics are, and then where our life is mostly filled with distractions. And when that happens, it's very easy to get depressed. It's very easy to start reacting and going with toward whatever your vice is, and getting caught up in that rat race. And then what you're doing is then you're starting comparing.
Yeah.
And arguing, and everything that according to my definition turns you a boy instead of a man.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. You see it all the time too, right? Like it's like the guys will be talking about they just got the latest Audi, and then like a week later another guy will walk in with the Audi A8 instead of the A6. And it's like,
right.
All of a sudden, that guy's conversation that he had about his Audi A6, the week not valid anymore, and he's just like, he might as well have bought a freaking 30-year-old beat up car. Like, it means nothing anymore.
It's all relative. It's all relative.
Yeah. Subjective. I think it's such an important thing to do these days, especially these days with when you're getting so like fiercely marketed to and everything, and you sort of buy into that, like you always need the upgrade, the 0.20 of whatever it is. Just to not go there. It's not as easy as it sounds, but the comparison thing too, especially if it's like, well, for me personally, where I am right now, rebuilding, like, it's so easy. It'd be so easy. I could drive myself crazy in a day if I wanted to do that, So I'm doing my best not to, but at the same time, like, living in a city and stuff, can be a little bit tricky to kind of keep that balance and be like, no, I'm stoked, stoked with where I am. Like, talking to John, I'm getting shit done. I don't need to have I don't even want $1 million anyway. I mean. Yeah, of course.
I do, but that's just me.
I know. I like money. Don't get me wrong. But
what's funny is money kind of scares me, and I think in my 20s I wouldn't have been able to handle it. Now at 41, I think I can. But as I get older, it's I get more joy out of simple moments and things that are more not so external, and.
Yeah.
And I think that's when the universe will give you external things, when you can actually handle it,
Yeah, and that's what. Going back to the money thing, like, I love money, but for me, I've chased it for the wrong reason. I've been guilty of that as well. And now, like, do I want $1 million? Like, I probably would prefer like about 25 million, but that would be not to have it in my account and just looking amazing. Like, it'd be for stuff like, so like my parents, or hopefully if my marriage stays, or my parents-in-law, can live in a cool place out the back of our house instead of going to a nursing home, or it'd be like to start a non-profit that I want to do, or it'd be, just be to use as a tool, like a hammer, like it wouldn't be for, and to have some security, because I know what it feels like to have nothing, and that sucks. So, but I definitely don't anymore. Like, I like money. I think it's awesome, actually, to be honest, but I don't want it just for the sake of having it, for that, jumping on that comparing sort of cycle.
I agree, and what I find is, I'll just touch upon this real quick before I leave. This whole idea of give versus take, in the sense that whenever you are taking, so whether it's validation, approval, seeking something from someone, whenever you're taking, meaning you want the $1 million because you want things, that's a very taking kind of mindset. You're not going to be at your potential, ever. So whenever you're giving, it's okay to want $1 million, but what you do with that, if it's going to make some kind of dent in the universe, or if it's going to do something that's bigger than you, then your potential exponentially grows, your potency. You know what I'm saying? So whether we're talking about money or whatever, or approval or validation, whenever you're in a very taking mindset, where you're trying to, when you want things from people or whatever, you're depowered and your potential is low. Whenever you're giving, and that includes being authentic, being giving the truest version of yourself, of course, as well as your heart, your intentions, and your giving to the world. And that doesn't mean like volunteering or giving cash. I'm just talking about giving as being living authentically. Your potential skyrockets, and ironically, I think that's when you'll get the things that you want, as far as objects and stuff. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I think that's the balance that you've got to aim for sure. Like, because when I've done the opposite of that, it was in the end it was to validate myself to myself. You know, I was like, instead of like staying connected to surfing and you know, keeping fit and boxing and yoga and all the stuff that I like doing
Mm-hmm.
that cost nothing. You know, I disconnected from that, and then I was trying to use this, you know, growing this events company and chasing more money as a way of like propping myself up to myself. It was
Right.
and even though it was only an internal comparison with what I have now not being enough to what I could have, it was a freaking vicious cycle. Like, it was nothing ever going to be enough, you know.
Yeah, and it'll chew you up. And then here's the other thing: if that's your thinking, and the more money you get, the thinking's not going to change. So it's just going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, that doesn't stop. It's all about your thinking. It's not about the dollar amount, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't think they ever would have reached a point. Like, I think I was either what happened was gonna happen, was either gonna fall over, or I was just gonna go, you know, it was gonna get just ridiculously massive, and I was still gonna be unhappy. You know, it was a lose-lose, like whichever way it worked. So.
Although I didn't make my bed today, and I did pee in the shower, this is a response, not a reaction, because there's no bites. There's no bites in that. And today is Donut Day, or the National Donut Holiday, or whatever that is. I'm gonna put that in the trash because you're gonna make me accountable and keep me feeling good about myself and not addicted to sugar anymore.
That's good. Very proud of you, John. Well done.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. What are you gonna do today?
What am I gonna do today? Well, my bed's already made, right? You can see that. I'm not sure. I'll come up with something. I'll let you know.
All right, cool. All right, Jeff, thanks for the chat.
Hey, no, it was really good, John. Thank you, man. It's actually, it's like, yeah, it's a lot of processing, like even just going through each point. It's kind of cool because you can't help but like look at how you can, like, you know, what I've done with each point, and so it's good, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's good for me too, and it's also anyone watching. It would get them to hopefully think about some of these things we're talking about, and they don't have to agree, but it's good dialogue, you know.
I don't know if you're going to get anyone necessarily agreeing about the pissing in the shower.
Yeah, that's all right. It's my truth. It's okay.
That one's going to take some work. I am going to try and exercise some self-discipline.
I just want to be heard, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, brother. That's
all right, man. Talk to you soon.
Peace.